You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.
Welcome back to What's Next with Lacey, the podcast where I interview young professionals about their career journeys so far. Hello everyone. Welcome back. Welcome new listeners. Welcome long-time listeners. I am so happy you're here for another episode, another conversation, another career, another story, all new and all very, very exciting. This week's guest is the wonderful Josh Simmons. He is the CEO of Vinyl Group, a music tech company out in Australia that is truly disrupting the industry, the landscape, and doing some really fabulous, wonderful things. He's going to go into all of the details later on in the episode, so I don't want to spoil much here, but I know I'm not supposed to have favorites, but this would probably definitely be up there. It was just such an informative conversation. I really enjoyed it. Josh is such an inspirational story, and I think there's a lot to be learned from his story and from his very entrepreneurial mindset. We dig into that a lot in our conversation, and I just really loved learning from him and hearing what he had to say. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And if you do, then please share this with any friends, any family members, any neighbors, any colleagues that you think might be interested in it. Or maybe not, but still share anyway, because I would really appreciate it. Anyway, without further ado, here's Josh. Well, Josh, welcome to What's Next. It is lovely to meet you. How are you doing?
I'm good, Lacey. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully.
Awesome.
I'm so excited to get to know you. You are so successful. You've done so much already. So I'm very excited to dive into your story. Starting with, you are the CEO of Vinyl Group. Why don't you just share first and foremost, what is the elevator pitch for Vinyl Group? What are you doing? What does your company do?
Yeah, we're a music technology company, but I think people can broadly understand us through there's two primary things that we do. We've got our publishing business, which is media and things like that. And we'll come back to that, I'm sure. And then we've got our platforms business, and that's our music technology companies that we own. So we're a bit of a portfolio business, which means we own lots of music businesses and stuff that under that broad umbrella, but it can be broadly seen through those two lenses. On the media side, we are in Australia the licensee of publications like Rolling Stone, Variety, some other sort of more lifestyle type publications in Refinery 29, and we have a ad network that's got many more sort of titles that people will be quite familiar with, and then we also have our own sort of publications that we own directly, like Tone Deaf and the Music Network, and altogether that's sort of a media platform that reaches the 10 million Aussies a month and sort of hundreds of millions of people across all platforms, and including social platforms through our brands and pages. So it's a fast growing sort of niche youth culture publisher business. It's makes sense to us. And then we've got on the other side, as I said, sort of music platforms and our tech business. So we've got a thing called Vampr, which is like LinkedIn for the music industry. Jackster, which is like IMDb for music. A company that we purchased fairly recently called Serenade, which sort of brings together physical and digital collectibles into sort of a new product category that we're pushing around the world. And vinyl.com, which is our e-commerce store that does exactly what you think it does, which is sell vinyl records.
Yeah. Wow. So there's a lot going on over at Vinyl. So why don't you tell us, how did Vinyl Group become Vinyl Group? I know it started potentially with one thing and then it's grown from there. Can you give me an overview of that?
Yeah, it's definitely an evolution of lots of companies coming together. I suppose I'm the instigator of pulling some of these things together, but it started off as a business called Jackster, which we briefly touched on before. And as a standalone business and a standalone public business at that, I think it struggled a bit to sort of justify its spot as a listed company, and just had a few challenges broadly of scaling. fundamentally solid asset, but hard to grow. And so we paired that with my business called Vampr, which I started about 10 years ago in America. And so the coming together of those two companies or assets, however you want to call it, really was the catalyst for this pivot into being a portfolio business that bought lots of other companies. And it was obvious once we bought those two pieces together, and also we'd launched this new store, vinyl.com, that we might have strength in numbers here. And so that sort of is where that pivot to pivot's the wrong word, pivot's a negative word. It was really just let's make sense of what we have now. And so we renamed it Vinyl Group and sort of pressed the reset button in many respects. So that happened in, I think, late 2023. Yeah.
Yeah. As businesses do, as startups do, as companies in the entertainment industry certainly do, you always have to make changes and switches and evolve into something new. So then where do you fit into this now? You started Vampr, you've brought all these companies together. What's your role now?
Yeah, I mean, as the CEO, it's sort of, I suppose, to spearhead the direction of the group. I am still operationally the CEO of these businesses, and so I get deployed wherever there's brush fires, typically. But I mean, obviously, a big part of my job at the group level is to make sure that as a whole we're heading in the right direction, that there's a vision of what's next and where we're going. And that is, I suppose, a little bit removed from that day-to-day jumping in piece. But it's been an ongoing I suppose journey to really nail that, right? Like it is unique. There's no two ways about it, going from being the founder of one startup to selling that business to then taking over the company that bought it to then buying other businesses and trying to operate them all. So I wouldn't pretend like we nailed that straight out the gate. I think we're nailing it now. I've got a fantastic leadership team around me that really support myself, but also the business's needs so that I can keep working on that bigger picture stuff. And I've never really been in that boat until fairly recently. Like, I've always had to get probably a bit more hands-on than anyone would like, including myself. But we're at that interesting point now where we've got quite a lot of talent. The business is at a certain size where we can afford talent, and that actually allows me to then work more on the business, and that's how you get growth and scale over time. So it's really exciting time for Vinyl Group, actually. Yeah,
it sounds like it. Do you miss at all the smaller, just being hands-on in the nitty-gritty at all, or are you excited about where this is going?
I still get involved in the nitty-gritty where I'm needed. So, on any given week, it might start off with, there's a problem in our media business with an unhappy I don't know, partner or something that really needs you to kind of go in and fix the situation or massage it or whatever touch I can sort of add. So that might happen. And then, it might be, there's a problem with the production line at Serenade and you really need your input and an opinion on what to do next. So I'm literally jumping between all of the business units on a weekly basis. So I don't miss it because I still touch it. I understand the question, though, as there's definitely a part of me that misses the early days of just having a single focus, sitting in a room with the developer and going, how can we really understand what the market wants, where the market lives? Are we going to do that through product? Are we going to do that through, sales strategy? Like, how are we going to reach these people? And all of those sorts of challenges that you have as a startup trying to get through those initial, years. I do. I guess I miss that process a fair bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, it's your idea. It's your genius. Going to the nitty-gritty of your day, going into your day, what does a typical day look like for you now in this role as, the CEO of multiple different subsidiaries?
Yeah. Every day is very different. So it typically starts early and ends late, and that's just because we've got folks in lots of different countries. So
7 or 8 time zones.
That's right. So there's almost always, a sort of 8 or 9 o'clock phone call. I try to avoid it, but it's pretty inevitable. And equally, there's almost early, an early morning call with New York or something like that. So typically sort of in work mode by about 7:30 in the morning. So that means everything that's got to come before that happens, well before that. Sort of can be 5:36. But I tell you what, I definitely don't subscribe to is the sort of bullshit you see on LinkedIn and stuff. That's like getting up and doing a cold plunge at 4 and having a green juice and journaling for an hour and all that. I just think that's a luxury that those who must have already made their money have, because for those of us trying to make it, you're just working hard and trying to stay healthy. So certainly,
fair enough. I've seen a lot of those videos. I don't know, the banana mash on their face or something crazy.
I don't think it's a lot to that, but certainly, I mean, some folks do all their exercise nice and early, and there's definitely a lot to be said for that. But when you've got early calls, I actually do that second. So I sort of typically get through my morning by about 10 a.m. and then I'll go to the gym. And then that sort of allows me to get charged up for another sprint in the second half of the day, and that's typically a much longer sprint than the first one. So that's broadly how my day looks. But I mean, on any given week, there's probably a flight somewhere. We've got we're Australian business, obviously, but we're a global trade, and frankly, on the technology side, I think 90% of our revenue is coming from overseas. So not a huge amount of global travel, but there's certainly a lot of travel inside of Australia between our two big offices in Sydney and Melbourne. So that always interrupts things a little bit, because even a 1 hour flight's a 5-hour ordeal from point to point. So there's a fair bit of travel, which you do get used to, thankfully. But no, I mean, probably the thing that every day has in common is the length, but the structure of the day itself is it's sort of dependent on whatever's going on. But I do like to reserve that 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 is my gym hour, and no one touches that. That's sacred time.
Fair enough. I mean, it's nice. I mean, it must be nice to be able to schedule your day how you want it and be able to fit things in.
Well, on the one hand, yeah, there's the flexibility to schedule it how you like. But on the other hand, when you're trying to, do business with other people who are equally busy, and if they're more important to you than you are to them, for example, you will just work on whatever time they need you to be at. So it's flexible from my perspective, but there's always things, like anyone, whether you're the CEO or the janitor, you're always answering to someone else and working on someone else's time to a certain extent.
Though, especially in the startup, I feel like there must have, or correct me if I'm wrong, was there a point where you went from, I have to abide by everyone else's schedule, really, to, wait, now I have enough leverage, our business is doing well enough, now I get to set the terms of the meeting, like things like that. Did you notice that shift, or did it come so gradually?
I think it was so gradual that I do recognize it in hindsight if I'm reflecting.
Yeah.
But no, there was no one point. It would have been more exciting story to say, yes, there was a day when I woke up and realized I had the control. But no, it's not like that. I think, when it comes to, like, I've got a very collaborative board, for example. We speak fairly often. And that's just at the beck and the call of whoever wants the information, or whoever, wants a discussion. And so things like that, you're just available when you need to be available. It's so I don't really view it through the lens of I control the calendar. It's just I'm available, and I'll control my availability. But when I'm on the clock, I'm available to whoever needs me, whether it's a board member or a team member, or yeah. But I see it a little bit differently.
So then what do you love about your work? Parts of it are your brainchild, and now this is your company that you're running. So what makes you get up in the morning, and for all those 5 a.m. early mornings, what gets you out of bed?
I think as a personality, I kind of always need something to be tinkering with or working on, and I get a bit restless when I don't. So for me, to channel that energy into business is logical. And beyond that, I love the industry that we're in. I've been involved in music my whole life since I was a baby, so it's a long relationship. Maybe at some point we break up and I try a different industry, but not quite yet. And there's a bit of unfinished business, I think. To me, the idea of assembling the next great major music business from lots of 21st century parts rather than trying to reinvent the 20th century, major players, which I find quite a boring old system. It's more interesting what we're doing. It's harder, but like any hard challenge, the rewards are much larger. So if we get this right, it's quite special. The opportunity there. I mean, we're trying to basically assemble enough and the right tools so that anyone who really has anything to offer creatively, whether it's a creator or a musician or even a prosumer, which is this sort of interesting blend of the two, of the consumer and the creator itself, who have a lot to offer through things like TikTok and places like that. But if we can give all of those types of people a company or a series of interconnected businesses through which to transact and get ahead and have a fair crack at distributing that output and finding an audience, that's so compelling to me when the recorded music industry is shifting towards DIYs and indies and away from the major players. To play an important role in that has always been compelling. And it was compelling to me before that shift started happening. I saw an opportunity, and now that's happening globally and it's understood and everyone's panicking and we're just in our spot doing our thing, growing steadily, and we'll keep doing that. And we're quietly confident that we're in the right space at the right time.
Yeah. So what has kept you in Australia? I know you mentioned that a lot of your market is outside of Australia, but you are fundamentally based. Do you have satellite offices? What's your relationship, I guess, globally?
Yeah, no, good question. We do have satellite offices all over. As I mentioned, I started my business in LA, so there's a sort of little bit of a foundation still over there. But certainly, actually, in Spain and London are our two biggest growing offices. And the reason that we're sort of still, I suppose, HQ'd here in Australia is we are listed on the Australian Securities Exchange. So our major investors are here, and even on the media side of our business, most of our larger commercial partners are here too. So it just makes sense to keep growing out of Australia. But I think in this connected world, you can really be anywhere you like, to be honest. I used to laugh, but when I started Vampr in, I think, 2015, I moved to America and I ended up becoming a citizen, and pretty amazing sort of 8 years there. But in hindsight, I could have moved to Mexico Beach, and I think I could have run it anywhere. I mean, obviously COVID accelerated virtual business even more, but we were doing that from day one. So Zoom calls, things like this, has been my life for a decade plus, and we're all very comfortable operating that way. So I don't see Australia as like a limiting factor or anything like that. It's just actually just a good quality of life.
Yeah, very fair enough. You were like, America, no, I need to get out of here.
Well, look, I still love America, but
No, I would be in Australia in no time, trust me. Then looking at your company as a whole, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you are facing right now? You said you were ahead of the market in terms of this digital focus and this DIY focus, but are there any challenges that you foresee?
I mean, our challenge as a group has always been to, and this is even amplified being a public company, is outgrowing the operational expense. So, what that means in sort of layman's terms is every time we add another business, and we're kind of at this point now where hopefully it's the opposite to be true, but when you add a business, like, ideally it's adding margin to your bottom line, and you're realizing the profit potential, and that's hence why you purchased the business, to try and grow your company. But what happens when you're a bit smaller, and we've gone through these growing pains, is you're typically acquiring businesses that still haven't quite achieved enough scale to outgrow their operational expense, and that's especially the case when you're summing a lot of different businesses together. So we've got our e-commerce business, we've got subscription businesses, we've got a media business. Now, as we are maturing and growing fast on the media side, for example, we're finally at that point where you add a new media business in, and you can actually incorporate it into the existing structure that we've built that's quite robust. And so you can start to make these additive contributions rather than subtractive ones, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a world where you add a business, but it actually subtracts from
Totally.
the group result. So we want to be at that point where we're adding things and it's adding to the positive result. And we're really at that point on the media side, and we're really fast approaching that point on the platform side too. It took several years to get there, and the hard part there of being a public company is that investors don't necessarily have a lot of patience, and it's kind of understandable. It's also a bit more liquid being public, so if they lose patience, they can get out, which is a great feature of being a public company. But we had to grow. You can't really fast track that. You just have to keep growing, and then eventually you hit a point where you go, okay, we're making more money than it's costing to run this business. And so it's taken many years to get there on both sides. And then now, as we sort of hit that inflection point where we hopefully move past that once and for all, the kind of options that for the business of what they can do next open up tremendously. That you can start looking at companies that are a bit more maybe riskier than you could have done before, because you've got a buffer there to allow for experimentation, and that's really compelling. And then you can also look at hopefully your market cap grows and the size, and the market re-rates your business because you're sort of operating with a profit, and that allows you to buy bigger companies that have larger profits. And so there's just a lot more optionality for how to grow the business from this point. You get as a CEO, you have a few more levers available to you once you've managed to get the group as a whole to profitability. So that's been the huge challenge. It's a very nerdy answer, but it's
no, not at all. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that has been, and the thing is to get sustainable profit. You, as I keep saying, you can't rush it, and you're taking your team, your partners, your place in the market, all on a bit of a journey, so that, as I say, once you get there, you want it to be sustainable. You don't want it to be a flash in the pan. And so it's a process of sort of making changes, sitting back and observing the effect of the changes on the business, the culture of the business, not just the financials, but the culture, and making adjustments accordingly. It's quite a methodical thing.
Yeah, taking all that and taking all these challenges that you have overcome. What's your ultimate dream goal for Vinyl Group?
Yeah. Well, when I first got appointed as the CEO of, it was then called Jackster, but same. I think I said on day one something to the effect of, if we, the way that we'll define success is if we can inspire another music tech company in Australia to go public and to pursue that route. Music in Australia, the music industry in Australia is sort of, I wouldn't say under fire, but I'd say it's underfunded and underappreciated. And there's a lot of great bodies that represent many of the players in the industry and speak out on behalf of that. And they've done a great job in fixing that. And that's sort of on the more governmental side of things.
Mm-hmm.
As the only public company that, in the corporate side of things, I feel like we've got the opportunity to be a standard bearer. And success for me is being the standard bearer and inspiring others to follow in our path. And so I stand by that. I think I also said something else, but we've achieved that. So I can't even remember what that was. But there were two things, and we did one of them, and the other one was...
One is checked.
One of them was ticked. So I legitimately can't even remember what it was, but I know we ticked that one. So...
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating answer that I actually fully was not expecting, because I feel like most people would be wanting to have the monopoly over the industry, and here you are being no, come more people, let's build this industry out.
That's right. I mean, a bigger pie benefits all participants, right? So
that's certainly true, but not how I feel like many people and CEOs traditionally would look at things.
Don't get me wrong. I'm literally known for consolidating and buying companies. So, I mean,
that's true. That's true.
But I think that's possibly the reason why I can do that, is because I also believe that there's room for other players like us.
You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.
I want to turn now to your specific journey to where you are now. Vampr wasn't the first company you started, right? You've also had like a film production company and a record label. So you clearly have this entrepreneurial side to you. Where did this come from? How have those experiences shaped your, I guess, job and your career that you have now?
I just got sick of waiting for people to do shit. So I was just impatient. But no, Vampr was my first sort of tech startup where I had multiple outside investors and managing other people's money. So that was, the first sort of traditional startup. But I ran lots of businesses before. I've been running businesses since I was 17 or something. So my first one was I left school early. I dropped out of school at sort of the second last year and created a film production company. And it wasn't financially a success, but I suppose on paper what we achieved was bloody impressive for that age. I think we made a short film that got like acquired for preservation by the state of Victoria, I think, and we made a feature film after that. I think the youngest ever director of a feature film or something. But
Wow.
we employed about 40 people, made a film on a shoestring budget, turned it around in a year, entered it into festivals, did all of that. And I just decided after that film probably wasn't for me. Hollywood, fine, but film.
Fair enough.
So I didn't stay with that. But I learned a lot about how to run business. I learned about people management more than anything, and expectation management. And so that was college. And then I took a few years off entrepreneurial things. I mowed lawns for a couple of years. But
after you'd started this company, after you'd made this incredible, wow.
And I did that to get healthy, to get some sun, and to meet people, and meet people that weren't in this entertainment bubble, and get some real experiences. And during that time, I traveled, but I also went back and finished school online and started university online and a whole bunch of things that I just kind of wanted to make sure I had ticked off as a fallback, if nothing else. But that took a couple of years, and then I got back into the entrepreneurial stuff again and started a label and all that stuff.
I mean, it's just absolutely fascinating, and it's just it goes to show how career paths don't necessarily need to follow this one single trajectory.
I think like a lot of kids, I was getting really anxious in my last couple of years at school, thinking if I don't nail this assignment, if I don't get the best grades, if I don't get accepted into the right uni, my life is over. And I think the other thing my generation saw was our parents had quite nice houses, but we didn't see a pathway to how we would ever get them ourselves. And I think that's still true, right?
Yes.
Right. So I don't know why, but that anxiety dawned on me at a younger age than maybe a little bit more aware than maybe some of my colleagues at the time. But that terrified me. And so my reflex was to go and create a business. And then once you do it once, there's a fearlessness. I would do it again until it works. And I think a lot of people's and I don't think everyone should run a business. It's just actually not for everyone. But B, the folks who want to start a business but are a bit nervous, that seems to be the thing that holds most people back. And it's just the starting part's the most fun bit. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't owe a shareholder any returns. The only person you're answering to is you. And every mistake you learn every mistake is a learning opportunity, is what I meant to say. And what a great, that's so exciting. Every time I've started a business, the first year is always among the best years. With vinyl, every year seems to be a highlight, but the first year is always bloody exciting because you're almost drawing the parameters of what your life is going to look like for a while. This is the boundary, this is the garden, this is the house, this is the operations, this is how it's going to go. And it's like you're the architect, and it's really cool. So I've never understood why folks get nervous about starting a business, but I also kind of do.
I mean, not to play like devil's advocate, but my question and the hesitancy that I've felt personally is financial, right? It is such a risk, and you may not be bringing money in. Like you said, your film production company on paper wasn't bringing in money. So that's the risk that you're taking. So how did you navigate that in terms of all these companies? And yes, you mowed lawns, but that just is immediately what comes to my mind when starting a business. I would love to, but I'm like, but how do I pay my rent?
I'll give you a very literal answer. So the label, which really only exists, I had a couple of other acts, but it really existed to be the label for my own artist project and publish my own, or I had a publishing company and a label, and they service or admin my own stuff. But I was in a band, and the band had its own growth trajectory. And so, yeah, I was mowing lawns, and then I started these new things. To operate them initially, the only cost was really my time and $50 here, $100 IT cost there. But, the costs were minimal. And so whatever I was making mowing lawns, and then I was cleaning toilets as well. So that money went straight back into the band. And we would need to tour in order to get on the radio or to stay on the radio. Music directors would say, you're not touring enough, you need to tour. And we'd go, we don't have the money to tour. And they'd go, that's not our problem, make it work. Bands signed to a label would get what's called tour support, and the label would fund it. But we were signed to an indie label, but not a big one with lots of money. So it was up to me to clean more toilets and mow more lawns to pay for those tours. Then I got some momentum, and the tours got bigger and bigger. And then eventually we were supporting Keith Urban, and that tour, I think, paid out $50,000, and I used that $50,000 to fund my first couple of years of running Vampr. Like it's you can actually trace each step to the last one. It's like leveraging up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes total sense, and you have to be willing to mow the lawns and clean the toilets and put in the time, but despite not being paid, to get to the next step.
And I had a little bit of help along the way as well. I had a small inheritance. It wasn't huge, but it helped.
Yeah.
It helped fill the hole for my, so I could survive and pay rent while I was trying to grow things. And I took a couple of loans from my folks at certain points. So I had to pay them back. So it was still getting paid back from, in the same way that a loan from a bank would as well. So there's no shortcuts there. But I think one skill that I've certainly gotten better at, and I assume everyone gets better at, is learning how to leverage the thing that you got to get to that next vantage point. And it typically happens in leaps. And the leaps are very obvious when you're going through them. You're very acutely aware that you're leveling up, and there's always risk involved anytime you're trying to pull off a move like that. And without getting into details, it can be quite challenging, but you have to take those leaps in order to keep growing. Yeah. And that's true of personal development and business development. So I think that the philosophy that I apply to growing a business is the same I've applied to growing my personal finance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not to turn this into like a finance podcast.
No, I've said that and I was like, what a wanker, but it's true.
No, absolutely. It is true. So I have to ask, what happened to the band? Why did you give up? I'm assuming you gave up the band to start Vampr.
Yeah. Well, not at first. So I ran them side by side for like a year or two. Okay. And then what happened was, as Vampr graduated from being a startup idea and became a company with multiple shareholders and other people's money at stake, I began to feel quite deeply that I needed to make a choice to do one or the other. And the reality was I'd already taken the money to do the startup, so the choice was a little bit made up for me. It was a heavy decision. I made the decision on stage, the last show we ever did. I remember thinking, this is it. This has to be it. And we went out on a high. We were playing an arena in front of 20,000 people, and I cried for like an hour straight because I just knew that was it. And I didn't go out that night thinking I've got to make a decision. I was playing and I was like, this is it. This is the final show. And it was hard. It was really hard. But the joke in at least the household is that the next, I kind of knew I'd get back on stage again. And I always said to my wife, but how are we going to top the last thing? We went out on an arena. How do you get bigger than that? It has to be a stadium. And the next time I went out on stage was a stadium. So
my gosh.
I did the
manifesting.
Yeah, seriously. Like 8 years later, it was almost 8 years exactly to the day. And I did this Coldplay tour last year, and we did 8 nights on the Music of the Spheres tour. So
with your band, with your previous
band? No, it was one of the bands we'd signed in Vampr, or one of the artists, sorry. And he just asked if I wanted to play guitar in his band. I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I'll do it.
I was like, but not a permanent band member. Just I went out as like the guest guitarist type thing. So, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
Other than that, like, is there anything that you bring from your days as a musician? Does it bring you like empathy for your artists or an understanding for your artists?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of my probably competitive edges as an executive in the space is I come at most things from an artist empathetic, place and think about what's a deal that I would have signed back in the day? And I can still think about it commercially and objectively. I actually think I'm probably not one of the only people in the world, but I'd be in a short list of folks that can think about it properly commercially, from an artist with experience signing lots of deals and a business person with experience offering lots of deals. And to be able to then make products that are compelling both ways is something that's only possible because of those artist years. Also, the skills that you develop as an artist, liaising with all the different people you have to, from promoters to publishers to agents to managers, fellow co-writers, session musicians, studios, the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle. You become, whether you know it or not, you're actually becoming a pretty nimble little business person yourself. Yeah. And so I take all of those skills and
You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.
Use them every day.
Looking at when you initially started Vampr, what was like the very first step you took to getting it off the ground?
I was, we'd had this great run in Australia where we were like playing festivals and on the radio and on TV. And I'm an English citizen, and I was like, maybe it's time to go home and see if we can crack a bigger market. If it's working here, probably has a chance of working there. What I underestimated was how your whole life up until the point that you uproot, you're developing a network. And, even if it's like, oh, your cousin's, best friend's house sitter's dog knows someone, you've got these pathways to people that can kind of help you achieve whatever outcome you're trying to achieve. It might be playing a show, it might be getting signed, it might be getting a publishing deal, I don't know. But you've got that network. And so then I was like, we're kind of semi-successful in my home country, let's go and try it in a bigger market. And just like, I got there and it was really hard, close to impossible. It wasn't impossible because there were some things I could do. Like I knew the sort of the ropes, like you got to get a radio plugger and you got to promote a track, but like no one cared. I was starting from scratch. And I don't think it was a lack of talent or ambition, certainly not a lack of ambition. It was just, I didn't have a network and I wasn't in any circles. And so the revelation I had was that every time you're sort of starting in a new place, you're starting from scratch effectively, and networking tools to kind of help creative types get past that very expensive first step. And what I mean by expensive is you might take 3 or 4 or 5 years in a country before you build a network. That's fucking expensive because you've got to pay rent during that time. You've got a livelihood to consider, and you're making trade-offs in order to choose to be there. So really expensive. And I thought, well, technology just hasn't fixed this in the creative world. It sort of fixed it in finance and, anyone that uses LinkedIn to get a job, go off, but it just doesn't work like that for musicians. So I wanted to create something that solved that. So I had to have the revelation first. Once I had the revelation, that light bulb went off, I think the first thing I did was call my old indie label manager and said, because I knew he worked in music technology and had some connections to Silicon Valley and stuff. And I was like, I got this idea, what do we do? And so he was like, well, shouldn't surprise you, I get pitched almost every day ideas, which makes sense to me now because I get pitched ideas every day. Mm-hmm. And I was like, he set me this challenge and said, if you can turn over a prototype and a pitch deck in 24 hours, I'll consider it. And it was like a ridiculous challenge, but I did it. And I stayed up all night and I'd never built a prototype. I didn't know what a pitch deck was. I had to Google it. This is all pre-chat GPT as well. So it's like critical thinking was very much required. And I pulled an all-nighter and I delivered it the next day. And he was like, I'm in. I mean, he already knew my work ethic because he'd worked with me and my band, but I think he wanted to see if I could apply this in a different way. And we became partners. We registered the business name a couple of days later and off we went. And then it was just a process of following the leads. Like I knew that I needed a technical sort of director person or a CTO type. I didn't know the name back then. I didn't know anything. So I just started picking up the phone and like reaching out to my network. And I knew a professor at a university and I asked him if he had any good students. He set me up on a couple of dinner dates and I hired one of them and they were my first employee. We scoped out what needed to be done and then spent 12 months building the first version. And then around the week that it was ready for release, I'd made the decision before this, but I moved to America that week, and we said we're going to give it a crack in Los Angeles and launch there, and my life changed forever. So it's just, yeah.
It just goes to show, your story really goes to show how important a network is, how important establishing a network and then utilizing that network is, and even beyond just the product that you then ultimately made. But yeah, I feel like there's just.
But I'll give the hack. I think the hack there, right, is I always thought I was shocking at networking. I still kind of do, but what I always undervalue until I look back on it and I go, I need to really learn this lesson. I'm reminding myself now is when people think about networking, they typically think about all the people they haven't met. Mm-hmm. They're not thinking about the people that they have already. And I had and still have an incredibly strong network that gets stronger of folks that just want to help. Mm-hmm. And when you're ambitious and bold, you're calling on that network. So I'm not saying I forgot to call on it. I was calling on it, but I didn't place enough value, I don't think, or gratitude maybe in just how special and strong that was and how they made that possible. I think I was always busy going, why can't I be in touch with this person? Or why isn't Scooter Braun returning my emails? Blah, blah. But it's like, you're actually pretty incredibly lucky to have all these people helping this vision of yours come to life already.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first thing I say to people. Look inside first. Look at who you already know. You've had a neighbor, you've had a cousin, whoever, like ask them first and then go from there. Because you're absolutely right. You're already surrounded by so many people. So looking at your career so far, even from the very first time you stepping aside from school and starting your first company, what do you think has been the ultimate motivator across your journey? Yes, you said money has factored in your decision making, but really, what was it that helped you make every decision every step of the way?
Well, I'd like to think that most critical decisions have been informed by a solid set of values. Probably instilled in me by my mum. I would assume my father passed away when I was 2, and so I had a twin brother, and we were raised by a single mum until she had a new partner eventually. But she raised us, I think, as well as you can in the circumstances. And both me and my brother a very solid set of values and principles that I think ultimately guide every decision. We were a musical family in that my father and his father were quite successful and fairly accomplished in the music industry and well known in the industry. So I always felt a bit of not an obligation, but I wanted to follow in the footsteps. That would have played a part, but not entirely. I mean, I didn't make music a career choice until I was in my early 20s. It was a hobby until then. I'd made the mistake of turning all my hobbies before then into business attempts, and they killed the joy for a couple of things. Yeah. So it was a risk when I decided to give music a crack, because I didn't want to kill the thing that consistently brought me happiness. And unfortunately, I haven't.
Yeah. How would you say, I mean, the obvious answer to the question I'm about to ask is you just learned learned through doing. I feel like that's a very common answer, learned through doing. But you said that you didn't know what a CTO was. You didn't know what a pitch deck was. Other than learning through doing, how did you figure this all out? I feel like that, I know that that's such an odd question, but I feel like it's such an obvious answer that I'm like, is there anything else that people can do to help figure this out?
No, but I think it takes a certain brain type. I'm a sponge, and there's plenty of entrepreneurs, millions, right? So it shows that skill isn't altogether that rare. But there's certainly less successful ones, and I wouldn't even put myself in the successful category. I think we're on the way. But the thing that I have that I think more people could benefit from practicing this is a genuine lack of requirement to be the smartest person. So I only feel secure when I know the people around me understand the subject matter that little bit better. Mm-hmm. Because as the CEO and I think a natural leader, I think I can say that without being cocky at this stage, I have to make decisions. That's part of the burden of the job. I have to make unpopular decisions. I just have to make decisions full stop, left, right, and center every day. Hundreds of micro decisions, several important decisions, and everything in between. And when I'm making those decisions, I like to be really fucking informed. I like to know that the decision I'm making is going to give the company or the situation the best chance of a healthy resolution or set it up for success, whatever it is. And the best way to make decisions like that is to have consultants around you who, not consultants is the wrong word. I don't mean consultants in the experts, who just surround you, whether it's your COO or your CFO or you're even your wife at home, just experts in whatever that is being considered to have them available to confer with and bounce ideas and then ultimately allow the best idea to win. So, of course, I'm going to always come into a situation with my own thoughts on how something should go. But if I stress test that with the people around me that I trust, and after stress testing it, it seems like there's maybe a version of that that's slightly better, or there's just an altogether better option or way of tackling something, then we'll go with that. And there's no ego or pride. Far too many founders I've met in every country, England, America, Australia, there's this bizarre ego, which I just don't understand, where, if they don't get their way, they become a bit stroppy. And I just think that's such a quick way to fail. I've seen some people with that attitude win, but I think that's because of luck. Luck always plays a role in everything. And
yes,
and there's lucky assholes and there's lucky, lovely people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think if you want to, I don't really like to rely on luck. I don't know that I've had a lot of it. So I like to bank more on repeatable processes. And my repeatable process is I listen to people who have done it before.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair enough. And, like you said, not everyone's brain is wired in one specific way for this, but some people's brains are wired in another way that could be useful for you in helping you advance. And so indeed, you should always be listening to other people.
You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.
People. I want to turn now to just get a little bit more just specific advice from you. So starting off with simply, what advice would you have for young entrepreneurs who are at the beginning of their journey?
One thing I definitely see as a mentor to a few young entrepreneurs is a lot of their journeys start with them looking for problems to solve, which I don't fully believe is the most authentic way to start a business. I truly think the best way to start a business is to try to solve a problem that affected you. But given that that's not the case, and a lot of folks do start off by looking at problems more broadly, I think the advice I would have is look at some of the less glamorous problems. Like, look around the people in your immediate life or in your business circles or whatever, and observe what tasks are they doing that seem to really piss them off and that are quite monotonous and quite repetitive and predictable, and try and build a business around that. Mm-hmm. I think it just gives you a far greater chance of success. With Vampr, obviously what we were trying to have a crack at was this sort of professional development market for musicians, or really social network for music. And it's a bit of a large problem. So your chances of success are far lower, right? And I think to anyone starting off, or even if I was to give it another crack, I'd probably look at a slightly smaller problem, because again, the smaller the problem, the more control you have over the outcome, and the more specific you can build a product around and a sales process around and hire experts in that field. It's just your chances of success increase at each of those steps when the problem's more defined. So yeah, I think that the loftier the vision, probably the riskier your chance of success becomes. Yeah. And certain character types can hold on and endure the pressure that comes with that. And I think for most sane people, you should just pick something a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, no, fair enough. You mentioned this slightly in your last answer, but if anything, what would you have done differently from launching Vampr to now? Is there any step that you look back on now and you're like, I would have done that differently?
There's certain events that went left when I wish they had gone right, but that's wishful thinking, because they didn't go that way. Like they went the way they did. So there's a few key moments where, if maybe raised this money over here and a bit earlier and not waited so long, we could have accelerated things. But the reality is, if things didn't go exactly the way they did, I wouldn't have sold it to a public company in Australia that needed a bit of help, and we needed a bit of help, and we helped each other, and now we're so much stronger than the sum of the parts. It's insane. That wouldn't have happened, and my life wouldn't have changed in the many wonderful ways that it has by being part of that vehicle, and then creating Vinyl Media, which is, very fast growing, respected media brand here. So like, none of that stuff happens if everything that came before it didn't happen in that exact specific order. So I don't know that I change anything.
Yeah. No, that's totally valid. And then looking at your whole career, band included, everything included, what do you think like you have learned that everyone should know, no matter their field? Like no matter their field, no matter if they're a business owner, whether they're in a band, they work in film, like just looking back at your career, what have you learned and you want everyone to know?
If you just stick with it, you'll win eventually. Like your definition of win will change, but like effort out, reward in, or like energy in, energy out type thing. Like anytime I've ever put any effort into anything, even if I haven't immediately gotten the result back that I wanted, I've gotten something back that's been so pivotal to the next stage. It's hard to overstate. And so that just tells me that the universe rewards effort. And that shouldn't feel like a secret, but it seems like a secret. Like you put a bit of effort into the world, you'll get something back. And what you do with that something is up to you. But that seems to me to be the hack. And then just sticking with something. So if you really think you can, fundamentally disrupt a space or a sector or have this game-changing thing, like if you stick with it long enough, and I don't just mean repeating the same broken process if it's not working, but I mean if you keep turning up every day with that enthusiasm, like that day one hunger of a startup founder to make it work, then you will make it work. It actually, and I've heard, it's interesting, I've met some leaders actually over the years, like, yeah, that is typically true, except there's some founders that I just wish I could politely tell them to give up because their idea is shit or whatever. But I don't even agree with that. I think if you've got someone that's sort of dogmatic and passionate about something, and they're going at it every day with 100% effort and enthusiasm, they'll work that out anyway. They don't need someone else to tell them to shoot it. They'll pivot, or they'll adjust the idea, and they'll get there. And we've all seen episodes of like Shark Tank where the pitch is like really bad, and they go 10 years later, this person's a multimillionaire, and you're like, okay, there you go. Like people figure it out. Everyone figures it out if they want to figure it out. So I only surround myself with folks that sort of have that can-do mentality. Fortunately, I'm not exposed very much anymore to that sort of negative, oh, this is never going to work type thing. I remember that from school days because I think it's probably the default for a lot of people, but I don't have anyone in my life like that anymore. So
yeah, I think it is the default, especially from those above us, like parents, teachers, any like adult figures that we have, that it is indeed like, well, you got to manage the risk, manage the expectations, and like stay the line and you'll be okay. But yeah, I think it's so true. I mean, it's the idea of 10,000 hours, right? If you put in your 10,000 hours, you will become an expert.
I think it's like closer to 100,000, but anyway.
Fair enough. Well, I could truly talk to you all day. This has been absolutely fascinating. Just final question for you, Josh, with regards to vinyl, with regards to your career, what's next?
Oh, I mean, as I said earlier, we're sort of at this inflection point of really, I think, finding our stride. We're sort of poised to deliver our first ever profit as a group. And what's so exciting about that is it's not just a group result, but a lot of these businesses would just have died if they weren't together. And they're not the most natural fit of companies. Like we know that. We don't shy away from that, but they make sense in our little bizarre universe that we're creating. And so many of them are on the cusp of being great in their own right, only because they're inside of this very warm family that supports each other and do great things together. I mean, Vampr's whole starting catchline was great things happen when people collaborate. And like, that's really the ethos of Vinyl Group. It's all these companies all working together, helping leverage off of one another's product offerings or sales offerings to make more money for the group. And we're just at this point where all of it's about to really tick over. And that's so rewarding for the staff, rewarding for me, very validating for me after years of grinding, and will be rewarding for the shareholders who decide to stay with us through a period that admittedly is causing some people some anxiety because, for investors, they're going, well, what if they don't? I don't live in the what if or the negative what if. I live in the what's possible, and we seem on track for that. So that's exciting. And then what comes next is anyone's guess, but obviously bigger and better things, because that's what opens up when you hit a point like that. So opportunity. I suspect that if the last 5 years were colorful, the next are going to be oversaturated. So. Yeah.
That is a beautiful way to put it. Well, thank you so much for coming on What's Next. It has been so lovely to meet you and chat to you and hear your story. And I can't wait to see all the incredible things Vinyl Group achieves.
Oh, thank you.
You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.